Good evening. I'm Sean Roman, pinch hitting for Nisa Petrilli.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And I'm Anthony Strait.
And this is On the Sports Line for March 5th, 2015. The beginning of March means the countdown to the madness has begun. With that in mind, tonight we are going to look at 7 teams fighting to join Kentucky on the number 1 seed line and 3 teams hoping that their bubbles will not burst come Selection Sunday. All that plus a look at the championship possibilities for all of the local teams in the area in the next 5 years. As always, we want to hear from you, so please email us at fanspeak@onthesportslines.com. Send your tweets to @OnTheSportsLines and your post to Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines. I don't think we'll ever get to read them, but
we've already done it. I got my quota for 2015 in the first 3 shows.
Oh, man.
More to come, Sean.
March Madness is just 2 weeks away, and my friend Jay is bouncing off the walls with
Yes,
anticipation.
I am. Yes,
Part of the reason for that is Jay's been around since the NIT was the premier tournament, and while it seems a foregone conclusion that top-ranked Kentucky will be the overall number 1 seed, there are about 7 other teams that have a legit chance at number 1. Do they deserve to be? So we want to look at each of them in a double round robin lightning round style segment. Steve, you're going to be first up. And do the second-ranked Virginia Cavaliers deserve a number 1 seed? If you could tell me how you think they would fare against Kentucky, I'll take that too.
Well, I'm going to say absolutely they do. They've only lost 1 game this year, and that was to Duke, and that was a very tight game. I think they lost by a point. And they remind me, I think the best way to describe Virginia is to say they're the Spurs of college basketball.
Yeah, that'd be apt.
Very efficient. Everything they do is really done well. And I saw them against Syracuse, and I was very impressed the way they broke down Boeheim's defense, which is almost impossible. They split the double teams. The guards got the ball to the forwards, and they are a terrific team.
And their pack line defense is one of the best and toughest to go.
All right, Jay,
Yes.
you're going to take on number 3. They've been excellent. They've got top player or top freshman in the nation, Duke
Mr.
Blue
Okafor,
Devils.
yes.
Well, how do you think they are as a number 1? Are they going to wind up a number 1? How do you think they fare against Kentucky
honestly,
in the end?
I think they could scare Kentucky. I really do. And honestly, without a doubt, I think they should be a number 1 seed. And
I do
even
too.
though Virginia has
Down.
a better record and is higher ranked, I think the Blue Devils aren't just the number 2 seed, second best team in the ACC. I think they're the second best team in the country. Their RPI is number 4. Their strength of schedule is 10. Their opponent strength of schedule is 16. They are 14-3 in what may be the toughest conference in the country, and it's likely to send 6 teams to the big dance. Now, while their non-conference strength of schedule is only 41, their non-conference RPI is tops in the nation. They have a 4-0 record against the RPI top 25. They are 9-2 against the RPI top 50, including wins against Big Ten powers Michigan, and State, and Wisconsin. Their other 7 wins against the top 50, they're all against fellow ACC teams, including that win over Virginia. To me, this adds up to a number 1 seed, and honestly, I think they could scare the crap
Imagine
out of
how
Kentucky.
awesome they would have been with Jabari Parker this year, who
Still
for me
year,
was
yeah.
just way too soft to enter the
yeah.
NBA last year. Now, Anthony, you have Villanova, the most local of the teams to analyze. Where do you think they're going to stack up? Will they get a number 1, and do you think they'll fare? How would they fare against Kentucky?
You know what? I think they will get one of the number 1 seeds. They're actually one of the hottest teams in the country. Currently, right now, they're on an 11-game winning streak.
How many losses do they have?
They have 2.
That's not a lot.
They have 2. Here's the thing: they're 28-2, RPI ranked number 5. When you look at that, look at their notable wins. They beat Providence twice. They beat Butler twice. VCU, St. John's, Georgetown. Now, based on the conference, the strength of schedule, that's number 5. They're basically in the 5th toughest conference, the Big East. Also, they're 10-1 against teams ranked in the RPI top 50, which is very impressive.
Yes.
Looking at Villanova right now, they win their game, the finale Saturday on against St. John's.
That's a game I'm going to
Yeah, that's a
remember.
good. That should be a good game. They run the table. They almost guarantee themselves a number 1 spot. One of number ones in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Even if they slip up in the tournament, I think they put up a good of a resume.
Yeah, I would agree.
To assure themselves at least one of the final three.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so at number 5, I'm going to take on one of the teams, and I'm looking at last year's tournament darling, Frank Kaminsky. He was a guy who in his freshman and sophomore year, he basically averaged 2 points a game. But in his junior year, he got about 14 points a game, and he became last year's tournament hero.
Yep.
Who remembers that overtime game against number 1 seed Arizona?
Yes. Yep.
And they also played Kentucky very tough last year.
They did.
So Kaminsky this year has improved even more. He's likely to be over Okafor the player of the year. That's
Quite
the consensus
possibly,
right
yeah.
now.
Could be.
And this is because, I mean, at 7 foot tall, you haven't seen a guy. This is what distinguishes him from Okafor. Kaminsky plays an excellent level of defense, and Okafor has not developed that ability. That comes from his natural 7-foot shot blocking
But
ability.
answer the question: is Wisconsin going to get a 1 seed?
You know, I don't think they will get a 1 seed, but I don't think it's going to matter. They weren't a number 1 last year. They made the Final Four. No problem there.
Lenardi agrees with you right now. He has them pegged
I
as a
don't
2.
think it matters actually right now, and you know there are a bunch of other teams who are fighting for that position. I think they're going to definitely. Wisconsin's going to wind up in number 2, and Kaminsky is going to once again lead them to the Final Four.
We will see.
All right,
Yeah.
so now we will go down the list. Some other teams fighting. Arizona last year got knocked out in that overtime game against Kaminsky. So Anthony, what do you think? Can they fight for a number 1 this year?
Do they deserve a number 1? Yes. Will they get one? No.
No.
And that's why. Because when you have 3 bad losses, UNLV, Oregon State, and Arizona State.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah, RPIs in the top 100, but neither of those 3 teams are actually contending for an NCAA bid. That's the one thing. But, however, when you look at the 5 notable wins, at Gonzaga, Utah twice, San Diego State, Oregon twice, at Stanford, the RPI rank is 7th. The 7th best. The 11th non-conference RPI, which is very impressive. Then you look at what they have to do to get in. To improve their chances, the Wildcats pretty much need to win their last game. Beat Cal. They already got a share of the Pac-12 title. They beat Cal. They get it outright. They run the table. They're going to need a little help, though.
Somebody's gonna have to fall.
Duke, Virginia, or Villanova needs to slip up. Otherwise, they get in. By the way, they also have the nation's longest home winning streak at 37.
I
Thanks to
don't see that
Gonzaga.
happening, Anthony. I think they're going to wind up in the 2 with
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
you know what? I agree with
But we gotta
Lenardi
move
as
on.
well.
Gonzaga Bulldogs, that's one of everybody's favorite small schools. Tell me, Steve, what do you think?
I'm gonna
You
do
wanna
it.
take
He'll tell you.
Gonzaga?
I got Gonzaga.
He looks more like a Gonzaga.
I got it.
All right,
I
he's
gotta
got
tell
it.
you, honestly, I do not think they get a 1 seed, and I
Neither do
would
I.
feel that way even if they had not lost to BYU
Can they
last
fall
week.
down to a 3?
No, I think they get stuck with the 2. This is one of Mark Few's best teams that he's had. Kyle Wilter, who transferred over from Kentucky, has developed into one of the better players. You talk about Kaminsky, this guy is he's developed onto that same level. I think they'll be a number 2. That's where they are right now. Only 2 games against the top RPI top 25, a win against SMU back in November, and that loss to Arizona in December. Their strength of schedule is only 89. Their opponent's strength of schedule is 87. Now that has a lot to do with the fact they're in the West Coast Conference, not a big conference, not highly ranked. Their non-conference record RPI and strength of schedule, 11-1, 31 RPI, 15. It would seem that they've scheduled pretty well, but it just means they're deserving of where they're ranked, which is in the top 10 overall. But a 1 seed, no. When you compare that against the resume of all the other teams that we've talked about and the one that Steve's about to, I just don't think they're deserving of jumping up to the 1.
All right, so Steve,
Yep.
perennial power, Kansas Jayhawks, Basketball City, USA. Where do you think they're going to wind up this year? Do they have a chance at that number 1 spot?
I don't think they do because here's the reason
We're just
why.
going according to formula. So uncontroversial.
I think we are at this stage.
There are certain things that are
Falling
pretty
asleep.
much.
All right, go ahead.
Here's the thing. When you look at Kansas, they're 15-10 against the contenders in the NCAA, and that is usually good enough to be a 2 seed. But when you look at Villanova and Wisconsin, they're 8-1 against the NCAA contenders. And Kansas is a strange team. If you go back,
Yes.
and going way back to '98, when they played Butler, when nobody knew who Butler was, and they were the 14th seed and Kansas was the 3, they were
Jay
knocked
remembers
out
it.
in the first round of the tournament.
I remember
And
that.
they've always had a strange history of not playing up to their level of ability. So
And doing better when you don't expect it to do
exactly,
that.
exactly. So I don't quite see them as a 1 either.
No, I mean, they're currently on the 2 line. And honestly, Sean, I think the 1 and 2s have pretty much been
wait.
set for the last 2 weeks or so, because none of them has really done something that's going to trip
Jay,
them
we got
up.
30 seconds. I want you guys to tell me about St. John's University. Definitely in, guys?
Yeah, they're in. They're an 8 seed. They're gonna close out against Villanova, but they've won 7 out of their last 8.
Are you excited for them this
Yeah.
year,
I am
Steve?
very
Yes.
excited. I'm
Anthony,
looking
what do you see
forward
their
to it.
prospects as?
I see them as an 8 or a 9, definitely.
How far do you think they can get?
Sweet 16 if things
yeah,
flip
maybe
right.
a
I'd
couple of
love to hear
rounds.
that. And the flip side of a conversation about those who are practical tourney locks is the discussion about those on the bubble and their chance of making the big dance. We are going to look at one that would just appear to be in, one that looks to have to play its way in, and one that would appear to be among the last 4 out. And we are going to do this lightning round style. So, Jay, NC State.
Yes, sir.
All right. What do you think? Have they escaped the play-in games or not?
Yes, I believe they have. They're right now listed on the 10 line. I think that's about right. They're 18-12, 9-8 in the ACC, which is impressive in that tough of a conference. Their RPI is pretty solid at 46. Their strength of schedule is 5, and considering they're in the ACC, that goes a long way there. They pulled off 3 straight wins over Virginia Tech, Louisville, and North Carolina. Those last 2 are the type of marquee wins that gets a team that was maybe on the bubble, off the bubble, especially since both of those were on the road. The loss to Boston College had some people looking at them because it was their first loss to a team outside of the RPI top 150, and they're only 12-11 overall against those teams. I didn't look at it as a bump, anything other than a bump in the road, because honestly, I think you get good road wins at Louisville and Chapel Hill. I think that outweighs a bad loss against BC. And the last 3 weeks, they have really come on strong, taken themselves off the bubble. I think they're pretty locked up at that 10 seed. The loss at BC was bad, yeah, but they came back and they beat Clemson, so I think that put them back on. They are 3-4 against UVA, Duke, UNC, Louisville, and Notre Dame. Those are the 5 teams ahead of them in the ACC. All are in the top 20. All are pretty much locks to make the tournament. If they win out, they will finish 6-5 against the rest of the ACC, and that one of the toughest conferences in the nation. I'm sorry, I think they're deserving of escaping the play-in game and being a solid 10 seed.
All right, Anthony. Now we're going to take you to the Midwest. The Purdue Boilermakers. What do you think of their chances?
Well, they are 19-10 overall. They're 11-6 in the Big Ten, which is third place, 8-5 non-conference
I think
schedule.
that doesn't look bad.
Well, but the strength of schedule is only 61st in the country, and 80th. Their RPI rank is 61st, but they have not done themselves any favors this week. You lose close games to Ohio State and Michigan State on the road, 2 quality opponents, but when you have double-digit leads in the second half and can't close it out, it's not going to help you. It's
How
back
can they improve now?
Well, they have to beat Illinois in the season finale this weekend.
There you go.
They're back into the corner. If they lose that game, they face a possibility of never mind being on the bubble or even being in a playing game. They might miss the tournament altogether.
Entirely,
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Right now, UCLA, would you agree they look like one of the last 4 out? What can they do to improve their
Well,
chances?
their best chance of possibly getting in, they beat USC, which is one game they had to win. The other game they have to win is against Washington. But when you look at the way they've played this year, even though they're 19-12, they've lost to a number of teams: Oklahoma, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Kentucky, Alabama, Colorado, and Utah. And the Arizona game, which they were leading 12-0, I saw some of that game. They were awful in the second half. They had a 12-0 lead, and after that, the game completely went the other way. So they only have one really good shooter. That's Corey Alford, the son of Steve Alford, their head coach.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I don't know if they'll make it. The only way they do is if the NCAA committee gives them grace and says
They
you played
practically
a
have
tough
to
schedule.
I think they practically have to make the Pac-12 final.
Yeah,
They
have
don't
to.
necessarily have to win it, but they have to make that because their resume is too similar to a lot of other
Exactly.
teams in similarly ranked conferences in the country.
Yeah.
That they're seriously going to have to make one hell of a tournament run,
Yeah,
conference tournament run. To
All
even
right,
get
we are
off
going to
the
get
bubble.
to something new and fun right now.
Yeah.
With the Jets and Giants getting over last season, Mets and Yankees a month away from the new season, and the Knicks, the Nets, and the Devils winding down disappointment seasons, and the Rangers and Islanders headed for the postseason. Our producer, Steve Rabinowitz, had a great idea, and he posed a question to us. Which of the local teams is most likely to win a title in the next 5 years? All you guys, you made your best attempt to rank the 9 local teams from worst to first in that regard, and we want to hear from you on what you think about that. Anthony, lead off.
You know what? Well, I did my list. I based it on Healing Now, and what can it do? Where can it go the next 2 to 3 years, and where will it
Get
eventually
to
the
it.
next 5 years?
All right.
Number 9, I have the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
I have them as the worst of the bunch. Number 8, I have the Knicks for obvious reasons. You're laughing, but it's the obvious reasons. Number 7, I have the Devils, and it seemed like only yesterday they were in the finals. Didn't it? It was a few short years ago. Number 6, I have the Jets. They brought back Todd Bowles, good defensive coach, good defense, but who's your quarterback at this point?
Yeah, good question.
Number 5, I have the Yankees at number 5 because post Jeter, who was the face of that franchise? Where do you go? You don't have much of a farm system. You've had to rely on
CC
free agency. If he's healthy.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy.
That's the obvious one.
Yeah.
Number 4, I have the Giants. You still got Eli, still got Coughlin. You bring back Steve Spagnuolo for defense. You got Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
You get back Victor Cruz. You franchise tag JPP, so he'll stick around for a little bit longer. And because they were in the weak NFC East and division opponents have virtually weakened themselves this offseason, you never know. They could go on one of those Cinderella runs one more time.
All right.
Number 3, I have the Mets. And that's because I like the young aces, the young pitching staff, which is the strength, and I never understand why they're bringing the fences in at Citi Field. I think it's a cheap gimmick, but that's just me. Number 2, I have the Islanders. My niece loved that one, but I like what they're doing. I think the move to Brooklyn will really help that
Yes, it will.
franchise in the long run, the foreseeable future. And number 1, I have the Rangers. They were so close last season. They made a trade for Keith Yandel and during the trade deadline, straight from their defense. What I didn't like about that trade, they gave up Anthony Duclair, a very top prospect. John Moore as well was gone in that trade. But they re-signed Max Zuccarello. Him and Lundqvist is 33, turned 33 early this week. So right now, the Rangers are shuffling all in. They want to win now. They have the roster.
And you think they have the best chance?
They have the best chance. They have the roster for the next couple of years. And it reminds me of a 94 trade. Let's see. Stephon Matteau. Who was that guy, by the way?
Steve, do you agree with Anthony's list, or are you
Give me a
finding
list.
yourself
I have
Give
a
me a
slightly
list.
different list than Anthony. I have the Knicks at the bottom at number 9.
well deserved?
I mean, when you've won 12 games, you're starting over from scratch, and who knows what they'll be like next season. The Jets I have at 8th because we really don't know what they're going to be like yet. They have a lot of needs, including possible quarterback. They need a cornerback. They need receivers. There are a lot of things they need. The Giants I have at number 7 because Eli Manning probably has a couple more years where he'll be as good as he is, but he can be very shaky.
number 7. He's the only one with 2 championships. That's number 7.
That's true.
Come
But he
on.
also threw 25 interceptions a couple years ago. So I have the Devils at 6. I think they're a good team, but certainly not what they were a few years ago.
And the top 5.
And the Nets at number 5. I think the Nets made a great move by getting trading Garnett and getting Thaddeus Young. That's really going to help them. I have the Yankees at 4. A lot of things have to go right for them in terms of their health and their injuries
They're on the
and their
downswing.
pitching staff. I do have the Mets at 3, much like Anthony, because I'm well, I'm an optimist. I'm a huge Met fan, but I love their Mets, the pitching staff. I think Kadire was a great addition to the team, and I like their bullpen. I think that's improved a lot. The Islanders, I would have had at number 1 up until the middle of the season, and now I have them at number 2. They're getting there. They're a very talented team. The question I have for them is their goaltender. It's Halak. He is a good goalie, but not a great goalie. So I think they're about a year or 2 away from getting to the top. And yes, I do have the Rangers at number 1.
Wow. The hockey teams are dominating.
And here's why
From the
I
left
do.
side of the table.
Not only are the Rangers the hottest team in the NHL, I believe they're 26-7-0 since December 6th, but Henrik Lundqvist has been out for the last 3 weeks. Cam Talbot has been fantastic.
Yep, he has.
8-2-0 since he's come in. And the trade they made to get Keith Yandel and they re-signed Matt Zuccarello, I really like their chances of winning the Cup this year.
All right.
All right, Jay, you agree, disagree with these
I'm going
guys?
to go down the list real easy. I have the Jets dead last because I'm sorry, that organization is dysfunctional
I'll
and a
ditto.
mess.
You don't even have to hear it.
The Knicks, same reason.
I'm with
Okay.
Jay again.
I have the Devils at 7 only because I just don't think they're anywhere near where they used to be. I have the Nets at 6 because to me the Devils and the Nets are pretty much in the same boat. I have the Yankees at 5 because I agree with Sean. They have taken a step backwards, and I'm not convinced they're moving in the right direction forward again yet. I like the Mets. I like where they're going. They have a good core. Everybody's healthy. I have them at 4. I happen to have the Giants at 3 because I do believe they have what it takes to actually get there. It's a question of having things fall right for them. I have the Islanders at 2 because it's too new. They don't have that much of as a pedigree, but I like where they're going, and I happen to disagree with you. I think Halak is a good enough goalie.
Okay.
I'm going to make it unanimous.
Well,
I
we'll
happen
see.
to agree with the Rangers, and not because I feel they can win in the next 5 years, because I actually feel they can win this year, okay? Now remember, the narrative for them has been they go as far as Lundqvist can carry them. They didn't score enough despite having guys who should be able to score, Rick Nash. They had a woeful on the power play. Despite having an excellent defense core, they allowed Lundqvist to see too many shots. This season, that's changed. Nash is scoring like, well, Rick Nash, finally. Okay? 38 goals, number 2 in the NHL, 59 points, number 12. Leads the league in even strength, tied the lead in shorthanded. Martin St. Louis, Chris Kreider, both chipping in with the goal scoring. Ryan McDonough is taken to the captaincy like he'd been wearing a C his entire life. Okay, the power play's improved. They're number 4 in the offense in goals scored. They've allowed the second fewest goals in the NHL, and their net best goal differential. You talk about Cam Talbot and stat, the actual. In 9-2-2 since Lundqvist has gone down.
Wow.
13-6, 9-17 save percentage. He's been awesome.
He's been terrific.
Here's
All right,
the thing.
you guys love the hockey teams.
I love the hockey team. I'm telling you.
so
I
think
got
they're
45
one.
seconds left. I can't get on the list.
Go run your list.
But I will tell
Go
you
run
right
your
now.
list.
No. I'll just get right to the top right now. The number 1 team is not a hockey team. It's the Giants. Because if you looked at past history, future results, any given year, the Giants could be 7-9 and just 2 fumbles away from being 9-7 and going on a run to the Super Bowl. Any year they get in the playoffs, the Giants have a great chance. The other teams that you guys mentioned, they have not in any way, shape, or other form proved that. The only one who proved that is the Yankees, because they had the pedigree at one time, but now they are just on the
the Rangers are coming off a season that actually took them to the Cup Finals.
So I will put them in the top 3.
there.
And the only one I will take a risk on, and it was so surprising, I was pretty much on top of them since last year, is the Islanders. I didn't think they would rise this fast, but I thought they were in the right direction, and I think their move to Brooklyn is going to infuse them with energy. So I do have them in the top.
Who do you have at the bottom?
I said ditto to you.
The Jets?
The Jets and the Knicks are just the bottom. I see absolutely no hope from them. There's no reason for optimism. That music means it's time for the 3-minute warning. Anthony, lead us off.
Thanks, Sean. Tough, gritty, underdog, and passion. Those were just some of the adjectives to describe the Knicks of the 1990s. Perhaps no one epitomized those great Knicks teams more than Anthony Mason. Mason passed away last weekend, far too soon at the age of 48. However, there is no doubt that Mace left his mark, as evidenced by the outpouring of respect from fans, current players, as well as former teammates. The Queens native rose from obscurity to become a major cog in the 1994 Knicks team that made it to the finals. Paired with Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, the idea of an easy basket looked like a Disney film, but felt more like Blade Runner. Mason's game was unique in that at 6'8", 250, he could handle the ball and create with the ease of any point guard you could think of. Mason's 13-year career included the Six-Man Award in 1995 and his lone All-Star appearance in 2001. Long after his playing days, he maintained ties to the Knicks organization and was never far from the Garden. It was always easy for a New Yorker to say Anthony Mason was our guy.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Mason, a man from the big city with the game and perseverance to match. Rest in peace, Mace. You will be missed.
Yes, you will.
Absolutely. Houston, we have a problem. There's only one King James. While imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, plagiarism and idiocy isn't. Last Sunday's NBA marquee game between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Houston Rockets, even without Kyrie Irving and Dwight Howard, it was still great. King James had a 39-point game, although he missed some huge free throws. James Harden had 36 points, but was more efficient overall. So maybe Harden was king for the day, but who's been the league MVP and scoring champ a number of times? Who won the championship twice and pulverizes opponents and passes and runs an offense like Magic Johnson? Hey Houston, you've got a problem. There's only one King James. The bearded one is a great scorer and improved defender, but he's no King James and never will be.
When the news of Josh Hamilton's latest relapse came across Twitter, all I could do was shake my head. Once again, an athlete with more talent in his little finger than I have in my entire body was squandering it because he couldn't keep his demons at bay. Then this past Sunday in the Sports Reporters, Mike Lupica made the comparison between Hamilton and Mickey Mantle. And the more I thought about it, the more apt the comparison became. Mantle had it all: movie star looks, the endearing aw-shucks charm of a guy who grew up in a small town, and all 5 tools that made one a baseball god. For the better part of 2 decades, he owned New York both on and off the field. He played hard inside the lines and partied even harder outside of them. He didn't think he'd live very long. His own father didn't see 50, so he figured he might as well live as much as he could. His battles with alcohol, womanizing, and injuries were well known. Josh Hamilton, when healthy and sober, can put up prodigious numbers with his bat. He also has the speed, the glove, the arm, and the natural God-given talent that make us go wow when he's at his best. But sadly, like Mantle, he struggles with his addictions, oftentimes losing to them. Mickey Mantle outlived his father by 20-plus years. He said later in his life that if he'd known he was going to live this long, he'd have taken better care of himself. Words to live by, Josh. Words to live by.
As we head to opening day 2015, baseball's rules are getting tinkered with once again with the goal to speed up the game. This year we have 2 good ideas and the rest disturb the very fabric of the game. Now, shortening the time between innings and pitching changes, that is absolutely awesome. But now there is a rule that the batter has to keep a foot in the batting box, often putting a grown man in a position that is just demeaning. Think about it. And keeping managers inside the dugout during challenges. Never has there been such a restriction on the manager's God-given right to roam about at will. And the absolute worst idea is the monitoring of pitchers with a timer in hopes of imposing a pitch clock. Baseball is the one sport through 150 years of development whose rules are akin to a beautiful poem. And it is the umpire best left to be the administrator.
Amen, Sean.
All right.
Yes.
And for Jay Kaplan, Steve Ferguson, and Anthony Strait, I am Sean Roman, and thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. We're going to see you again on March 19th for another edition of On the Sports Lines. And remember, if you want to see this show again or catch up on any of those you might have missed, please check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines and check out our blog at onthesportslines.blogspot.com. And good night.
Good night.
Good night.